Of course, this week, the biggest news in the UN is the adoption of the first ever Security Council resolution since October 7th attack, demanding for ceasefire in Gaza Strip during Ramadan. This came after the veto of the US draft resolution by China and Russia last Friday, which condemned Hamas, yet to mention Israel only once. The adopted resolution was actually in parallel with the US one. We saw both drafts last week, but it was after the veto of the US draft, the non-permanent members of the Security Council decided to move on with their draft, the E10 draft resolution. The vote was scheduled on last Saturday morning. However, we are told that the US delegation approached the E10 members on Saturday, suggesting some alterations of the text needed to be done so that the members could walk out the chamber with a resolution. Now we saw the difference. For example, this is a very simple resolution which contains three things: immediate ceasefire during Ramadan, unconditional releasing of hostages, and expansion of humanitarian efforts. The first two things used to be in two separate paragraphs, but the final text put ceasefire and releasing of hostages together so that the US could interpret the text as the two things linking to each other. As a matter of fact, diplomats told us until the last minute, the council members were still making changes to the draft. For example, making permanent ceasefire to lasting ceasefire, which I have to say, very funny, because my French and Arabic colleagues told me they have the exact same translation of the two languages. So that also explained why even in the council we saw huge discussions before the meeting, and the US planned to come up with an amendment condemning Hamas, but then withdrew because it's deemed to be vetoed. Now, about the binding or non-binding issue of the resolution, this is what the U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield said.
We fully support some of the critical objectives in this non-binding resolution, and we believe it was important for the Council to speak out and make clear that our any ceasefire must come with the release of all hostages.
I asked several people, and here are their thoughts. Does the Secretary General think this resolution is law-binding?
As I've always been told, all the resolutions of the Security Council are international law. So to that extent, they are as binding as international law is.
New resolution that just adopted in Security Council would be implemented, given the fact that the U.S. colleague said it's not law-binding.
It should be implemented. Whether it would be implemented, that's another question. But what she said, this is really a joke, because she should have read the charter, which clearly says that the Security Council resolutions are mandatory to be implemented.
I think that interpretation is among lawyers and legal experts over this issue. There are differences of opinions, but the law is the law. The charter demands from all member states to honor and respect and implement Security Council resolutions.
Well, Ambassador told us, if it's not binding, then what are we doing here for months? Party? But we have to realize that the implementation would be difficult on this one. Another big news this week is the announced departure of the permanent representatives of China, Ambassador Zhang Jun. He announced his departure just right before the vote on Gaza resolution on Monday.
My tenure as the permanent representative of China to the United Nations is ending by the end of March. And thank you so much for your support in the past almost 5 years. I'm very much honored to represent China in the United Nations for the past 5 years. We are living in a world confronted with many challenges, but I'm very much proud of China's great contribution to the United Nations in maintaining world peace and in promoting development. As you have all eyewitnessed, China is in China is making great achievements, and we are seeing a very different China today. And you can count on China's continuing support to the United Nations.
Ambassador Zhang Jun became the permanent representative of China to the United Nations since 2019. We had quite a lot of interaction in the past 5 years. For the past few weeks, he's been busy meeting with U.S. Secretary General Antonio Guterres, President of General Assembly Dennis Francis, and other representatives and UN officials. Well, before we finish this segment, here are some highlights of Ambassador Zhang Jun's tenure here in the United Nations.
我的任期呢即将结束。最近几天呢，我正在陆续的同联合国秘书长古特雷斯、同联大主席、联合国的高官和各国常驻联合国的代表呢，做辞行拜会。
The role to meet depends on the size of the team. The big team is here. Please.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I made a gesture of meeting you before you get to the door. I normally reserve that for heads of state.
Thank you so much.
But I wanted to honor you for the great work you have done for your country and for the UN.
代表中国出使联合国，对我来说是莫大的荣誉和沉甸甸的责任。过去这几年呢，对我来说也是一段难忘和光荣的经历。
I briefly take the floor, Mr. President, to commend China for its very successful presidency during the month of August and without ties. Thank you.
感谢巴西代表的发言，感谢他所讲的友好的话。我希望下个月他就有机会展示他那些漂亮的领带了。我始终牢记祖国和人民的嘱托和信任，全力以赴地履行好自己的使命和责任。我们一直想问，所谓基于规则的国际秩序，到底是基于什么样的规则？基于谁制定的规则？这些规则与国际秩序之间是什么关系？中国正在成为世界可以信赖的伙伴，是和平的力量、进步的力量和发展的力量。北京冬奥会欢迎你，谢谢主席先生。当前世界变乱交织，面临重重挑战，在这样的形势下，世界更加需要正确的方向指引，更加需要对公平正义的坚守，更加需要推动前进的力量，更加需要团结、信任、合作，也更加需要一个强有力的联合国。尊敬的以色列代表，我想提醒你，你可以在发言中完全表达你的不同意见，但请对会议所邀请的同胞人保持起码的尊重，这是安理会的一贯的惯例，也是大家都应该遵守的规则。中国坚定奉行真正的多边主义，坚定地支持联合国在应对全球挑战当中发挥核心和重要作用。我为中国的发展强大和所发挥的作用而感到骄傲和自豪。我也相信，在联合国这个重要的多边平台上，中国特色大国外交可以继续大有作为。我也祝在后面参观联合国的 那些朋友们度过美好的一天。